We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Thursday, June 4th, here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Kyun.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. Also, Wonbin's with us.
Hello.
And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So we're now heading toward the end of the work week, making it a good moment to talk about one of the biggest sectors driving Korea's economy right now. So South Korea's semiconductor sector is riding a wave of growth, reshaping local economies and even influencing the housing market. So how exactly big has Korea's semiconductor boom become, Kim?
It's become extremely big,
Very
to say the
big.
least. Yeah. And the momentum is still going. Even foreign media outlets are covering the news of, Kospi. And not long ago, the market capitalization of SKhainicks, one of the main semiconductor giants of Korea, surpassed the $1 trillion mark, joining Samsung Electronics, the other tech giant, in reaching that milestone. Now, South Korea also experienced an unprecedented stock market rally, with the Kospi soaring to record highs, breaking the unprecedented 8,000 point mark just last month.
It's about to break 9,000 actually.
Wow.
That is actually
Yeah.
correct. We're very close to breaking the 9,000 mark. And employees also working in the semiconductor-related companies receive performance bonuses worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And according to a recent survey, workers at major semiconductor firms earned monthly salaries averaging up to 15 times the national average wage.
Wow.
Okay. I shouldn't be laughing, but I'm crying inside. Samsung workers in the DS, Device Solutions, are expected to receive almost 600 million won in just bonuses after reaching an agreement with the company in allocating the division's operating profit.
So those numbers really highlight how concentrated the gains have been. I feel how concentrated has not been up with me. So with some semiconductor workers seeing compensation levels far above the national average, and the impact is no longer limited to corporate earnings or salaries. So how is the chip boom then affecting the local economy?
Local economy massively affecting it. The regions where these companies are located in are seeing some rapid rise in the price of real estate, which often happens when a large sum of money or cash is suddenly injected into the market. And moreover, the department stores in that region also had a 40% rise in sales compared to the previous year. So we can assume that the people who will be getting the bonus are beginning to open up their wallets. So yes, this cash bonus is definitely slowly getting released into the real economy.
Right, so the effects aren't staying within the industry itself. We're seeing the semiconductor boom ripple through local housing markets, retail spending, and the broader economy. So we're going to talk more about this, but first, let's take a look at the screen. Not long ago, investing in stocks was considered optional, but today it feels almost unavoidable. As more people turn to the stock market in search of wealth, those sitting on the sidelines can feel increasingly out of place. For many, watching others post investment gains has fueled both financial anxiety and fears of being left behind. Today on News Generation, we explore Korea's investing boom, the growing fear of wealth polarization, and the memes that capture a growing obsession with getting ahead. Just as we saw in the video, the semiconductor boom is creating clear winners, but it's also changing how many young Koreans view wealth and success. And the impact goes far beyond stock prices and corporate earnings. So why are so many young people feeling left behind, Kim?
That's a very good question. As semiconductor industry employees and investors continue to reap substantial financial gains, many others who have not benefited as much from the boom are experiencing growing anxiety about being left behind or falling behind. Experts say that feelings of FOMO, or the fear of missing out, as well as a sense of relative deprivation, are becoming increasingly widespread through this semiconductor boom. Phrases such as suddenly becoming poor as others wealth skyrockets, and everyone is getting rich except me. Once again, gaining traction online and in everyday conversations as well, reflecting the widening perception of a wealth gap amid the ongoing market surge. Now, I think it's become much more easier to compare oneself to others because of social media and online communities, but the one big incident that created more of this kind of phenomenon was the recent Samsung 600 million won bonus fight that fueled a bigger sense of feeling left out, and even unfairness within the Samsung division employees that received a much smaller portion on bonus compared to the DS, even though they had worked the same or even more number of hours and with a better degree, or even like just everything in general. Like, so they're thinking, oh, this is unfair now. Why only specific division employees receiving a ridiculous amount of bonuses? So there's even a lot of backlash and controversy within the Samsung industry as well. So I think this just expands broader to social kind of I guess like talking point conflict as well.
I feel like it's almost set a sense of hierarchy with semiconductors being up there. So it seems the conversation is no longer just about making money, but about keeping up with everyone else. And some analysts say the shift is even challenging long-held ideas about what success looks like here in Korea. So how is the semiconductor boom then changing, I guess, Korea's idea of success?
Yeah, this boom is definitely affecting, or I should say almost rewriting the definition of Korea's ideal success. So in the past, Korea's textbook definition of success was pretty simple and everyone kind of knew it. It was study hard, go to med school or law school, become a doctor or lawyer, rake money, and give your parents the prestige of saying, oh, my son is a doctor, he's a lawyer. However, this is now changing because, as Kyun said, semiconductor engineers and manufacturing staffs are making the same or sometimes even more money than the traditional prestigious high-earning white-collar jobs. And some people working in semiconductors didn't even go to university. And just to be clear, I'm not saying that this is inferior, but they invested way less time and money in academics compared to the white-collar jobs, which gives them the advantage of time and age. Now, when we look at the most preferred universities, majors in the past, it was again med school or law. However, nowadays students are starting to aim for semiconductor-related majors like electronic engineering, or majors or schools that give a guaranteed spot or job opportunities in Samsung Electronics or SKhainic's.
So that really is a remarkable change. So careers that were once seen as a bit unconventional now being viewed as some of the most desirable paths that are available. Of course, stats and trends are one thing, but personal experiences can also tell a different story. So have you ever felt like you're falling behind, especially recently?
Oh, every day. Seriously, every day.
Relatable.
Yeah, but honestly, feeling jealous of others isn't going to change my life in any way. So what I do is I just try to focus on my life, my career path, and what I can do more right now to actually change my path more towards success. It is easy to feel very insignificant and feel like you are becoming poor despite working so hard.
Right.
But to really minimize that impact, I avoid digging too deep into social media and even the news, because I know immediately that it's going to make me feel worse, because you'll just start, just naturally, you'll start comparing yourself to people who've become suddenly rich all of a sudden. So yeah, just refrain from looking too deep, just focus on what I do.
Right.
Is the key.
Very important. What about you? Do you happen to know anyone who actually works in these companies?
Yes, one of my friend, actually, my friend from the Army, he actually recently got a job in SKhainic's.
Oh, he did?
And I remember back in 2021, 2022, we were talking about, in the Army, he was talking about how worried he is about his career, because back then semiconductor was in the winter season, but nowadays he is in the Lord Hynix, or
doing very well.
Yes, he's considered as a very prestigious working position. So therefore, FOMO is definitely there for me as well, and I pretty much agree with what Kyun said in terms of just general life and career. So to give a short, different perspective as an investor in the stock market, as we all know, the employees from Samsung Electronics and SKhainic's are getting a big cash bonus, but the company stocks are actually seeing a big rally as well. And in my case, I do not have those stocks, unfortunately. I'm sorry, Mom, but I didn't buy SKhainicks and Samsung Electronics. But my stock portfolio from the beginning of the year went up 40%. And assuming that knowing that the stock market goes up about 7 to 8% annually on average, this is an excellent number that I should be very grateful of, very proud of. But if I look at the neighbor stock, which is again, Samsung Electronics and SKhainicks, they're pumping 7, 8, 10, 11% ups in one day, which makes my 40% gain kind of look like peanuts. So even though I'm winning, I kind of feel like losing and I feel like missing out. So kind of it hurts to say it out loud, but the FOMO is real for me as well, for investors.
Right, that's why comparison is such a scary thing. So I think many also young viewers, especially younger ones, can probably relate to those feelings. And these emotions have become so widespread that they're even inspired a wave of internet humor. So what kinds of memes have emerged from this phenomenon and craze about Samsung and also SKhainicks?
Right, so this has become quite interesting online. Recently, a popular Korean variety show featured a satirical scene in which a man's shabby appearance drew little attention in the beginning until it was revealed that he was wearing a vest bearing the SKhainicks logo underneath. And the other person's attitude suddenly completely changed all of a sudden. Immediately poking fun at the growing prestige associated with semiconductor companies. Now, new slangs, terms such as like Lord Hynix that Wonbin just mentioned and Lord Samsung have even emerged online, reflecting the almost celebrity-like status that employees at these firms actually have now. The company branded vest has since been jokingly dubbed the ultimate blind date outfit.
Right. I saw that meme.
And reports suggest that semiconductor workers have indeed seen their value rise in the marriage market as well. So one matchmaking agency reportedly rated employees of major semiconductor companies nearly on par with traditionally sought after professions such as lawyers and doctors. So it just highlights that how much the industry's social status has grown in recent years.
I think it's hilarious that now wearing like an SKhainicks like Letterman jacket to like a blind date is becoming a thing.
You'll see more people wearing like those fake SKhainicks logos underneath.
Right.
Who knows? Yeah.
So it is interesting how admiration, envy, and humor all getting mixed up together in these jokes, and the memes aren't just about salaries or bonuses anymore. So how else is social media reacting to this chip boom?
Right, so I'm assuming that you're asking me more about these Gen Z, just funny memes. To share some examples, people are making these AI-generated images of just supercars lined up in front of the Samsung Electronics and SKhainicks company building, and obviously the title of this photo is The Daily Commute in Samsung and Hynix. Yes, you know, the Lambos, Ferraris, all the expensive cars, which means that they made a lot of money. And people are also making some silly jokes about when they order delivery food, they don't care about the delivery fee. When they eat yogurt, they don't eat the top yogurt part that's on the seal. And when they get gas in the car, they don't, you know how we do like the little dance with the wire to get the last drops? They don't do anything, they just pull it out and let the oil drip. So a lot of memes are getting generated praising about how much money they're making.
So we talked a lot about the lighthearted side of about the jokes, and while these jokes may be exaggerated, but they reflect how people perceive a growing gap also in lifestyles and also spending power. And that brings us to a bigger concern many young people are talking about today. So are younger workers becoming anxious about wealth polarization with this happening now?
Definitely. For many younger Koreans, the concern goes beyond the so-called K-shaped polarization. There are fears of an H-shaped polarization, a situation in which, pretty much like this, up and down, in which social and economic divides become permanently entrenched, making upward mobility far more difficult across generations. Now, many members of the MZ generation argue that the gap in salaries and performance bonuses between employees at large corporations and those at smaller firms have widened even more compared to previous generations. And as a result, some worry that catching up financially may become virtually impossible, not only for themselves, but for also their children and like the future generations. The numbers appear to support these concerns. Over the past 6 years, household income among lower income groups declined by 1.7%, while income for high-income households earning more than 7 million won per month increased by 11.3%. Now, for many young people, these trends reinforce the perception that wealth accumulation is becoming increasingly concentrated among those who are already ahead, deepening concerns about long-term inequality and diminishing opportunities for social mobility. So basically, the rich get richer while the poor get poorer.
So what's striking is that the concern isn't just about today's income gap, but whether that gap becomes permanent. And the younger generations appear to feel that pressure more intensely than anyone else. So why are younger Koreans in particular worried about this wealth gap?
Right, it's definitely because we don't have any seed money. Yeah, we don't have any big stock portfolios. We don't own any houses, apartments, any real estate. And this means that we're completely left out in terms of asset appreciation, which usually happens, again, when a big sum of money is injected into the market, which is right now. Statistically, again, very similar with Hyun's example, the asset valuation of people in their 40s and 50s increased about 7%, while on the other hand, people under 30, it actually declined 0.3%, which is, again, obvious considering that we don't have a house or asset to appreciate. Moreover, even if young people did make money with stocks, it's very difficult for them to make a life-changing amount because they don't have a big seed money. For example, if you invest $1,000 into a stock, and even if it goes up 10 times, which is an extreme example, you have $10,000. Obviously, a win is a win, but it's not a life-changing amount. Therefore, it actually makes young people more stressful, feel more FOMO, and they actually end up making irrational investments that results in losing money too. And to pivot back to what Kyun was saying, even in real life, we will begin to compare ourselves or think about that one friend who went into SKhainicks or Samsung Electronics, which could cause more social disruption, social conflicts, and probably some jealousy and hate as well, and overall competition in terms of life and money. So yeah, young people are feeling FOMO and being left out in many different ways.
Right. So even for the people benefiting from the boom, comparisons can make you feel like they're still falling behind someone else. So beyond the memes and the headlines, the bigger question may be what all of this means for society going forward. So to better understand the psychological impact behind these trends, we're going to talk to a therapist. And that conversation will take place right after break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Eun-jung, a therapist with a master's degree in counseling. So hello, Eun-jung. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So why are the younger generations particularly vulnerable to feeling left behind these days?
I think there are two major factors. Humans have always compared themselves to others and worried about being left behind. But what has changed is the scale at which those comparisons occur. Through social media, we are constantly exposed to other people's achievements, relationships, careers, homes, and lifestyles. It dramatically increases both frequency and intensity of those comparisons. Second, many traditional milestones, such as buying a home, getting married, building a stable career, or achieving financial stability, have become more difficult to attain these days. At the same time, social media can create an impression that everyone else is achieving these milestones with ease. When those two factors come together, it's easy to feel as though everyone else is moving forward while you're standing still. The reality is that many people share similar struggles, but we often compare our behind-the-scene experiences to other people's highlight reels. So together, these factors create an environment where feeling left behind becomes much more likely.
Eun-jung, what impact can chronic comparisons have on mental well-being?
Comparison itself is not necessarily harmful. The challenge arises when comparison becomes the primary way we evaluate our worth and success. Over time, people may begin measuring themselves against other people's achievements rather than their own value, goals, and personal growth. The problem is that other people's lives are largely outside of our control. When we base our sense of success on external standards, something that is uncontrollable, we become more vulnerable to anxiety, self-doubt, and dissatisfaction. There will always be someone who appears more successful, happier, or further ahead. So as a result, people can find themselves constantly chasing the next milestone without ever feeling that what they have is enough. So over time, chronic comparison can disconnect people from their own values and make it harder to recognize what truly matters to them.
Right. Now, what are some healthy ways to cope with comparisons and FOMO, fear of missing out?
I think one of the most important thing is recognizing that comparison and FOMO are actually normal human experiences. FOMO is not a sign that something is wrong with you. In many ways, it reflects a very human desire for belonging, connection, and significance. When we look beneath the surface, FOMO leads us to deeper questions such as, do I still belong? Am I valuable? So rather than treating FOMO as something we need to eliminate, it can be helpful to view it as information. It may be pointing us towards something that matters to us. For example, feeling left out may reflect a desire for greater connection. Feeling jealous of someone else's accomplishment may reveal a goal or aspiration that is important to us. So at the same time, these thoughts can trigger fear or anxiety. So when we feel overwhelmed by those emotions, we tend to focus things outside of our control and make decisions from a place of fear. That's why it can be helpful to shift our attention back to what we can control. This may include taking breaks from social media, limiting exposure to content that constantly triggers feeling of inadequacy, reconnecting with supportive relationships, and clarifying our own values and priorities. Ultimately, the goal is not to stop comparing ourselves completely. The goal is to return to our own definition of meaningful life rather than letting other people's life define success for us.
I think it's so easy to feel overwhelmed at times when you're trying to compare yourself with other people. I think that's a really realistic advice about how it's really helpful just to ask yourself like why you're feeling this way and getting into the core of it. I think will be really helpful for people to get over that kind of anxiety. So thank you for that advice and thank you for coming on and sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
We just spoke with a therapist about why the younger generations are particularly vulnerable to social comparisons, the toll chronic comparisons can take on mental well-being, and healthy ways to cope with feelings of FOMO and relative deprivation. So while experts do offer valuable insights, many people develop their own ways of dealing with these emotions in everyday life. So I want to ask you, Kyun, how do you personally feel when you're just overwhelmed with things of being compared to other people?
After hearing what Eunjung just said, I think keeping things very simple and doing things that you can actually control over, in your life. For example, I'll keep it very simple. Eating well, we can choose, we have control over.
Right.
Sleeping well on time, and exercising as well. We'll keep our daily lives feeling much better about ourselves because we have no control over the stock market. Whether it goes up or down, we have no control over. So do things that you have control over, like eat well, sleep well, and perhaps just meet good friends and exercise.
Great advice. What about you?
Right. My best advice, my method is to go out and get some air. Doesn't matter, go for a walk, go for a hike, just walk around the block. When you go outside and get some air, it definitely helps you to refresh yourself, make rational decisions instead of getting sucked into that rabbit hole of constant comparison, the hate and the jealousy and the negative feelings. So going outside definitely helps.
Right. So today's discussion showed that the impact of the chip boom goes far beyond stock prices and bonuses. It's reshaping how people think about wealth, success, and their own future prospects. And the challenge going forward looks like it will be continue to finding ways to celebrate success without letting comparison define our sense of worth. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. But News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. Big thanks to Kyun.
It's always a pleasure.
And also Wonmin.
Thank you for having me.
And to our viewers, thank you for watching. Hopefully you're surrounded by people who look at you the way investors look like Samsung and SKhainic's today. We are News Generation.